Hey everyone, today we'll be talking about one of the graphic user interfaces provided by Python, Tkinter. It is a standard Python interface to the Tkinter GUI toolkit shipped with Python. Now what is TK? TK is a free and open source widget toolkit. It provides a library of widgets for building a graphical user interface in many programming languages. But now since we're working with Python, we have Tkinter Module. TK has a cross-platform operating system and it is written in C. Now to install Tkinter, you can run pip install Tkinter. You will write pip install Tkinter in the terminal and you'll be good to go. Please note that if you're working with Python 2, it is Tkinter, the T is capital, and if you're working with Python 3, it is Tkinter, the T is in lowercase. The spelling is the same, it's just the difference of the cases. Now to create any Tkinter app, you would basically be following these 4 steps. You'll be importing the Tkinter module. You'll create the main window. Now windows are the containers in which all other GUI elements live. Now what are these other GUI elements? These are widgets. Widgets can be text boxes, labels, buttons, etc. We'll be making each one of them in the upcoming videos. Widgets are contained inside of windows. Okay. And that's what the third step is. You'll be adding these widgets to the main window. You can add any number of widgets to the main window. Then you'll call in the main loop method. It is used when your application is ready to run. It is an infinite loop. Main loop is an infinite loop used to run the application, wait for an event to occur, and process the event as long as the window is not closed. Okay. We also have geometry managers, namely the pack, grid, and place. Pack is very much used, but we would not talk about them right now. We would talk about them later. Right now, we would try to get the Tkinter window, the master window that we just talked about above. I'll write the least code to make the window appear. Let's do that. I'll import Tkinter. I'll write import Tkinter. I'll have my window, the window I was talking about, in the second step. And I'll write win equals tkinter.tk. Fine. Now tk can have a lot of arguments. So the screen name sets the display event. Base name sets the profile file by default. It is derived from the program name. Okay. Now class name, it is the name of the widget that is currently used, widget class. It is tk here. Okay. Then we have use tk. If it is true, it initializes tk subsystem. We have sync. It is used for debugging basically. It executes all X server commands synchronously. Then we have use, which specifies ID of the window for the application. Now these all arguments might not make sense to you right now, but once we start making big applications with Tkinter, you'll get the use of them. Okay. Now I'll write win.mainLoop. And I have called in the main loop. I told you I won't be making any widget right now. I have skipped the third step and called in the main loop. Okay. Now let's run this and see if we can get the window. So I can see the window that I declared. You can even resize it. This logo is of TK software. If you search on the internet about TK, you'll see this logo. You can also add in a title to this. Let's do that. I'll write win.title. I'll give the title my first Tkinter window. Now you can see the title appearing. It's my first Tkinter window. It was TK here earlier. Now after this, we start making Tkinter applications, but in the next video, we would talk about some Tkinter modules. Tkinter is very easy to work with, and with a very less amount of code, you can achieve a lot. So the upcoming videos would be very helpful for you. Thank you. Hey everyone, Tkinter offers great modules, and that's what we are going to talk about today. While using a class in Tkinter, the module first assembles a TCL or TK command string. Now, the Tkinter package is the standard Python interface to the TCL or TK GUI toolkit. TCL or TK is not a single library but a collection of various modules. If you're not familiar with the TCL or TK, I will just write down the architecture briefly for you. So TCL is a dynamic interpreted programming language. Just like Python, it is another programming language which is written in C. It is most commonly embedded into C applications. We talked about this last time, that TCL is mostly written in C. Then comes TK. TK is a TCL package implemented in C. So what is TK? TK is a TCL package. It is used to add custom commands to create and manipulate GUI widgets. Okay. Then we have theme TK, or we can call it TTK. It is a newer family of TK widgets. It provides a much better appearance. So this was all about the architecture. Now about the modules available in Tkinter, we would talk about some useful modules, and to get a better idea of how they work, we will see some examples too. Now TTK is very important as a module. So it provides you upgraded widgets. So the widgets here are upgraded than the main Tkinter module. Okay. We can also talk about the color chooser module, which lets you choose a color in Tkinter. To just show you how it works, I'll write a piece of code. Now I'll import Tkinter. I'll write from Tkinter import TTK. And I'll import Tkinter.colorchooser. That's the module I was talking about. Then I'll declare the window container. I'll write win equals tkinter.tk. We did this in the last program. I'll also give it a title. Let the title be Tkinter Color Chooser. Then I'll define the change color function. I'll write def change color. Don't worry if you don't understand what is happening in this program. It's completely fine because we have not discussed any of it. I am just writing this as an example to just show you what the color chooser module can do. Then I'll define this function. I'll write colors equals tkinter.colorchooser.askColor. I've used the askColor function. And then I'll configure. I'll write win.configure pg equals color1. Now to call in this function, I'll make a button. I'll write ttk.button. So I've used the ttk module button and not the regular one. And I'll call in the window. I'll write the text pick color, and the command would be change color. I'll call in this function, and then I'll pack this. Then I'll call in the main loop. Cool. So what I've done is I've made a button which when clicked will call in this change color function, and you'll be asked to pick a color and it'll change the background color to that color. Cool. So let's run this and see if we can change the background colors. So I have the screen, let me resize it. And I'll pick a color, click on this button. So I have this new window, or a pop-up box you can say. I'll pick any color and select OK. And I have it as the background color. You can even change this color. Let me pick another color, click OK, and I have a different shade. Cool. So that's what Tkinter Color Chooser module can do. Now, if we talk about the other modules that we have, we can talk about Common Dialog module. So basically, we have many modules to create dialogues in Tkinter. This module is the base class for getting dialogues. We can also have file dialog. It is used to get dialogues to save or open the specified file. We have simple dialogues for the dialogues. We can also have font module. So it is used for writing fonts. I'll just show you an example how we do that. So I'll just comment this piece of code and Okay, I'll declare a variable, let it be Georgia, equals tk font dot font, and family equals Georgia, size 30, weight bold. That's how you declare a font. And you can declare a lot of things. I have declared the family, size and weight. You can even declare if it needs to be slant, if it needs to be italic or Roman, or if it needs to be underlined, or if it needs to be overstruck. You can even do that. Then we can have other modules like the message boxes. So I'll just write down something for that too. I'll import Tkinter, and from Tkinter I'll import message box. Okay, I'll just define another function. So I'll write def dialog message box dot show error answer, sorry, no answer available. Okay, and then I'll again declare a button, ttk dot button text equals answer, and I'll call in the main loop. Fine. So let's see what we get. So I have my screen, and let me resize it again, and I'll click on this answer button. So I get a pop-up. It says sorry, no answer available, and I'll click on OK, and I'll exit the screen. So that's what we have when we use the message box module. We can talk about many more modules in Tkinter. We have scrolled text module, so we can get a text widget with a vertical scroll bar. It's all built in. We have idle lib module, constants module, dnd module, ticks module. We also have total module. It's a very powerful GUI with great applications. And I'd really like you to check out the total module because it's really amazing, and you can do a lot with total too. That's pretty much it about the modules in Tkinter. Thank you. Hey everyone, in this tutorial we would be talking about the button widget. So I will just explain as I write the code for creating one such button. I will just follow the 4 steps we discussed in the introduction video. So I'll import Tkinter, I'll write import Tkinter, then I'll declare the window. That was the second step. I'll write win equals Tkinter dot tk, and then I'll give in the title. I'll write win dot title, and let the title be button. Okay. Now I'll declare my widget. That was the third step, adding any number of widgets to the main screen. So I'll write button, that's my variable, equals Tkinter dot button, and I'll give in these brackets, and you can see that there are these numerous parameters that I can specify to size my button or to decorate it. So first I'll give in this master, which is about the parent window. So I'll write win. Then I'll mention the text. So it's the text that I want on my button. So I'll write quit because the command that I'd be specifying. So command tells you what the button would be doing. So that would be win.destroy. So destroy is an universal widget. You can not only use it with the window container, but also to destroy other widgets like the button itself. Okay, and I can even specify the height and width of the button. So I'll write width. equals, let it be 7, and height, let it be 4. Okay, then I can have the active background parameter. So I'll write active background, let it be pink. So active background is basically the color of the button when you have clicked on it, and active foreground, let it be purple. So that's the color of the text when you have clicked on the button. Then you can also specify the background color and foreground color. Let us specify that. So I'll write PG equals sky blue. You can also take in the RGB colors, but I'll take the normal ones for right now. Then you have foreground, let it be white. And then you can even specify the font, let it be Georgia. You can give in any font, Arial or Calibri. Then I'll have relief, let it be equal to ridge. So relief is the type of border you want. It can be flat, groove, raised, ridge, solid or sunken. Okay, that's all that I'd be specifying, all the parameters that I'd be giving in for my button. But there are more. In place of text, you can even give in an image that would be working as a button. Okay. Or you even have this justify parameter. So how you want to show the multiple lines. If you have a text, then how you want to show those multiple lines along left side or right side, or you want it to be in center. So it's basically the alignment of the text, but for that you would need to specify that /n in the text, otherwise it won't be treated as multiple lines. You can even have pad X or pad Y. So pad X is for additional padding along the Y axis, left or right of the text, and pad Y is for the additional padding above or below the text. Then you can even have the state parameter to disable the button. Then you have underline, so the corresponding number text would be underlined. Then you can have wrap length. If it is positive, then the text lines would be wrapped to fit within this length. And then I'll get to the pack. I'll pack this widget. I'll write button.pack. So this is a geometry manager that organizes the widgets in blocks. We'll talk about this very descriptively in some upcoming videos. But for right now, just know that it's for organizing this widget. There are options to this. You can give in an argument. We have expand, fill, and side. Expand lets the widget take up any space on the master window. Fill is for taking up extra space, so you can specify along Y or X axis or both. Then you have side. It is for top, left, bottom, right alignment where you want your button. And then I'll call in the main loop. Cool. I'll write win.main loop. Let's run this and let's check if our button has the parameters that we specified. So I have my screen and I can see this sky blue and white combination that we specified for background and foreground. And when I click on it, I can see this pink and purple active foreground and background. You can even see this ridge border, and you can notice the border width, the width and height of the button, and yeah, okay. You can even see the text. And when I click on the button, the window goes away, as in the window is destroyed. Okay. So everything worked as we wanted it to. We could see the parameters working, button parameters working, and the widget working quite fine. You can even get an image in place of this text, so please try doing that. It's very easy. So that's it for this program. Thank you. Hey everyone, today we're going to talk about grouping and organizing widgets in the master window, and we're going to make use of frame class and pack geometry manager. A frame in itself will work like a container. A frame is a rectangular region that would be used to arrange positions of other widgets. So basically it is used to organize a group of widgets. So let me start writing the program for it. So I'll import Tkinter, or I'll write from Tkinter import star. Okay, so I do not need to import every single module separately in Tkinter. I'll just write the class name. I do not need to mention Tkinter.button or something like that. Then I'll take the screen. I'll write when equals tk in brackets. Here I didn't need to write Tkinter.tk because I've already imported it. Then I'll give in the title. I'll write win.title. Let the title be frames. So the third step was adding widgets. Now we'll be adding widgets. So frames are also widgets that helps in organizing other widgets. I would take the button widget only since we talked about that in the last video. So to organize my buttons, I would use the frame class. Now I'll write frame equals frame and in brackets win because I want this frame on the window, right? So you can see that we can give in a lot of arguments for frame. So you can give in PG, this was for the normal background color of the frame. Then you can give in BD, that is the border size, and you can give in the cursor. So the mouse cursor will change to this pattern, specified pattern, when you hover over the frame. And then you can mention the size, you can tell the height and width. Then you have relief here, which was also there in buttons. So it's the same here. You can specify the kind of border you want for the frame. Here I won't be specifying anything because I would be getting some widgets over it. So it's no use, it won't be displayed. So with the frame class, I have made a rectangular area and then I'll pack it to the left side of the screen. So I'll write frame.pack side equals left. We discussed this in the last video while we were discussing pack a little bit. We talked about side, fill and expand. I hope you remember. So I'll be writing side equals left in the argument for pack. Okay. I will take up another frame so that you can understand what frames actually do. The grouping would be clear. So I'll write frame 2 equals frame win because I want this frame on the window, and then I'll pack this to the right side. Okay, so I'll write side equals right. Fine. Then I'll get my buttons. I'll write B1 equals button. Now, last time when we declared the buttons, you might remember that we used window as the master argument. But right now, since I want my button on this frame, I'll write the frame variable. Okay, so I'll write frame, comma, text equals button 1. Let the background be pink and foreground be white. Fine. Then I'll pack this button. I'll write b1.pack. Similarly, I'll declare button 2. I'll write b2 equals button frame, comma, text equals button 2, and background color sky blue and foreground white. And then I'll pack it like b2.pack. Fine. Then I'll have two more buttons, b3 and b4. I'll get them on the second frame that I declared. You might notice that I have not given any commands for the buttons. So let's not focus on that because right now our main focus is on understanding frames. So let me get my button 3 and button 4. I'll write b3 equals button frame 2, text equals button 3, background purple and foreground white. Okay, then I'll pack it. Let me get the button 4. Button frame 2, text equals button 4, background let it be light green and foreground let it be white. Then I'll pack it. I'll write b4.pack. Then I'll call the main loop. This main loop would be called for the master window only, the parent window. So I'll write win.main loop. So let's run this and see if we get the buttons on the left and right sides according to the frames. So I can see the buttons, the 4 buttons that I declared, and they are on sides. Button 1 and 2 is on the left side and button 3 and 4 are on the right side because I have packed the frame 1 on the left side and frame 2 was packed on the right side. As we have not given any command to the buttons, nothing is happening when we are clicking them. You can think about how differently you can pack these buttons, just like we have packed the frames. You can use the side or expand or fill arguments. And that's what we'd be talking about in the next video. We'd be discussing geometry managers. Thank you. Hey everyone. So I've always told you that we're going to talk about the geometry managers whenever we used pack. So that's what we're going to do today in this video. We will talk about pack, grid, and place. Since you have already used pack in some of the last videos, let's start with the pack widget. So from Tkinter, I'll import star. Then I'll get my window. I'll write win equals tk. I'll also give in a title, so I'll write win.title and let the title be geometry managers. Okay, then I'll get the widgets. So for the widgets I'll get some frames and I'll pack those frames. So I'll have my frame 1 equals frame. For the master I'll give window win, then let the width be 200 and height be 100, and let's have the background color to be orange. Okay, now I'll pack this frame. I'll write frame1.pack. So I'll fill this for both the axes. I'll write fill equals both and side equals left, expand equals true. So this fill and expand is for making the frame responsive. As you increase the screen size, the frame will expand in both the directions, and the side is to place it on left. Cool. So let's have another frame. Write frame 2 equals frame win. Let the width be 100. Background color, let it be purple. And I'll pack this. And I'll give in the same arguments as above. I'll write fill equals both, side equals left, expand, true. Okay, then I'll call in the main loop. I'll write win dot main loop. So let's run this and see how the pack works, see how the frame works. Okay, so I have this screen, and as I expand it on either side, if I expand it along x-axis, I can see the frames increasing. So you can see the two colors, purple and orange. So that's the rectangular area a frame makes. And the packing starts from the left side because we have specified side to be left. Okay. And you can see as I expand the screen, the frame size also increases. Cool. So if I want to talk about the place geometry manager, it is used to control the precise location of a widget, the location it should take up on the window or the frame. Okay, so we can give in the coordinates. It takes up 2 arguments, x and y. So that's the top left corner coordinate of that widget. Okay, so let me write something for it so that you can understand it better. I already have Tkinter imported and my window. I also have a title for my window. I'll just get another frame to get my button on it, or rather I'll get two buttons. So let me have the frame. I'll write frame equals frame win, and let the width be 150 and height be 150. Frame dot back. Okay, and I'll have my button 1. So button 1 equals button, and I'll get this button on the frame. So I'll give in the master to be frame. Let the text be button at 10,20. And let the background color be pink. Then I will place the button, not use back, but I'll place it, and I'll give in the coordinates x equals 10, y equals 20. So I'll get this button at 10,20 coordinate. The top left corner coordinate of this button would be at 10,20. Then I'll get another button, button 2 equals button frame. Let the text be button at 40,50, and the background color, let it be yellow. Then I'll place this button again at 40,50. So x equals 40, y equals 50. And then I'll call in the main loop. We'll check this if this works fine and we get the buttons at the defined coordinates. Now when I run this, I have these two buttons at the coordinates. So this top left corner is at coordinate 10,20, and this yellow one is at 40,50. So that's the coordinates, and the buttons are at the specified coordinates. So the screen should be seen as a coordinate plane, and the buttons are at the specified coordinates. Cool. So that's how place works. Now let's talk about grid. Grid has all the parameters of pack, plus it is efficient than place, as place needs specific coordinates. Grid just splits or makes parts of the screen according to the matrix given. You'll understand this better if I give you an example. So I already have Tkinter imported, and I'll just comment this part. First of all, if you're talking about grid, you need to make that grid. So we'll make it just like we make a matrix. I'll have two for loops, and I'm gonna make a grid of 3 by 3. So I'll write for I in range 3, for j in range 3, frame equals frame, master is win, and let me give in a border type. So relief equals sunken. That's about my frame. So for each block or each matrix element, I'll get a frame. Okay. Now I'll use grid for the frame. I'll write frame.grid. So you can see what all arguments we can give for grid. We can give the row, which is I, then column, which is equal to j. We'll give in some extra padding along x and y axis both. So let it be 5. That'll look good. Then I'll get some buttons on these frames. So I'll write button equals button. And since I want this button on the frame, so I'll give in master equals frame. For text, I'll give in the matrix elements index. So I and j, I hope you know this format. This is general Python. Then we'll get to packing this button. I'll just use pack for this, not grid or place. I'll simply pack this button. So I'll write button.pack. I'll give some padding. Pad x equals 5. Pad y equals 5. So that there is space between each element of the matrix, and also there is space between the text and the button. And then I'll call in the main loop. I'll write win.main loop. As you had expand and fill in pack, you have column configure and row configure in grid. I want the buttons to increase in size just as the screen size increases. So I'll write win.column configure. So you can see what all arguments it requires. So first is the index. So of course index is the row or column number. Then you have min size, which will given the minimum size of the row height and column width in pixels. Okay. And then you have weight. Okay, so weight is the rate with which the size of the button or size of the specified widget would increase. With what rate? So I'll give it to be 1. I want all the grid elements to increase with the same rate as I increase the screen size. Okay, and I'll give in the min size for column configure to be 75. Then I'll also have row configure. So I'll give in the index I and weight equals 1. And the minimum size, let it be 50. So we're good to go. Let's run this and let's see how grid works. So you can see that the screen size is not little, there's a proper grid because we have already specified the minimum size using column configure and row configure. There is a specific size of the screen because there is a minimum size of the buttons. And when I resize the screen, they grow in size automatically. The button size doesn't grow, but they are rearranged on the entire screen properly. So that's it for grid. That's it for the geometry managers. I hope you understood everything, the place, pack and grid widgets. They are going to be of great help in the upcoming videos. So you really need to get a grasp of what was going on throughout this video. Thank you. Hey everyone, today we're going to talk about Canvas widget in Tkinter. It's going to be very easy and simple. We would just see some functions provided by the class. Canvas is basically used to draw graphs and charts, to get text or images on the window. We would see drawing some simple figures on the canvas. Let's start with it. So from Tkinter, I'll import star. That's a very convenient way. Then I'll have my window. I'll write win equals tk. And I'll also give in a title. I'll write win dot title. Let the title be canvas. Okay. Then I'll add my widget. So my widget would be canvas. I'll write canvas equals canvas. And where do I want my canvas? I want it on my window, so I'll write win for master. So basically canvas is a rectangular area where you can draw. Okay, so you have the height and width for canvas. I'll give in the width to be 500 and height to be 500. I'll also give in a background color, let it be PG equals sky blue. You can also have a cursor for it, so let the cursor type be dot box. You can give an arrow, circle, clock, cross, exchange, heart as a cursor type. There are a lot of cursors in Tkinter. So you can see how many arguments you can give in for canvas. You can have border, border width, background, highlight color, insert border width, etc. So I'll just give in these parameters and then I'll pack this widget. I'll write canvas.pack. Then I'll get on to creating the figures. So first of all, I'll write canvas dot create arc. I'll give in the x1, y1 and x2, y2 coordinates. So that's basically the starting and ending position. So I'll write 5, 10 and 100, 100. Cool. Then I'll also create a line, a simple line that is parallel to the x-axis. I'll write canvas dot create line, and I'll give in the starting and ending position 0, 80 and 500, 80. So you do not need to specify the x1, y1 pair and x2, y2 pair separately. Tkinter knows how to pick the coordinates if they are given in the correct order. Similarly, to draw an ellipse or an oval, I'll write canvas dot create oval, and I'll give in the top left and bottom right coordinates of the rectangle in which the oval would be contained. So I'll give in 200, 200 and 400, 400. Fine. Then I can also give in a text. So let me use this as the heading for the canvas. I'll write canvas.create text. The starting position would be 250, 10, and the text, let it be using canvas. Cool. You can also give in bitmaps. You can also draw bitmaps. So I'll write canvas.create bitmap and let the location for the bitmap be 210, 50, and bitmap equals quest head. So you have a lot of kind of bitmaps. You can take error, gray 75, hourglass, info, warning, question. I have taken quest head. Then you can also try creating a polygon. So I'll write canvas.create polygon. To create a polygon, you would need the corner coordinates of the polygon. So I'll make a list for that. I'll write points equals, I'll make a list. So I'll try to make a hexagon. So let the coordinates be 100, 100, 120, 100, 140, 120, 120, 140, 100, 140, 80, 120. So there are 6 pairs and 12 points. Okay. So for the argument of create polygon, I'll write points and I'll fill with color pink. So that's all I'd be drawing for right now. I'll call in the main loop. I'll write win.main loop. So let's run this and check our canvas. So as I run this, you can see that the screen is of a specified size, that is 500, 500, the canvas size. And if you expand it, you can see that the canvas is not extended. Okay, it's to a specified size. You can see the arc, you can see the bitmap, you can see the line, you can see the hexagon, you can see the oval. So the oval turned out to be a circle because the coordinates that we gave in were 200, 200 and 400, 400. They are the coordinates of a square. Not a problem. And you can also notice the kind of arrow we have within the canvas. Outside the canvas, it's just a normal arrow, but inside it, it's a dot box. Cool. So that's it about drawing on a canvas. You can make a real canvas like a paint app using Canvas by Tkinter, but it requires events. So since we're not still done with events in Tkinter, we would do that later. You can check out how to get images on a canvas. Try to do that and also try to make some complex shapes on the canvas. I hope you will be able to do that. Thank you. Hey everyone, today we would be talking about radio buttons and check buttons. They are another type of widgets. They can be used while making a form. So this is a very simple program. To make it a bit interesting, what I would do is I would give in commands to these buttons. Whenever the buttons would be filled in, the specified function would be called. And the function that I would define would declare another Tkinter window and show us some message. For that, I will use canvas widget. We have already discussed it in the last video. So let's start writing the code for it. From Tkinter, I'll import star and I'll have my window, master window. I'll write win tk brackets. I will also give in a title. I'll write win.title. Let the title be radio buttons. Cool. Then I will have an int variable. So I'll write v equals int var. So this int var would be used to control the variable value for the radio button or check buttons. It would be used to set its current value option. Now this int var function can hold integer data, where we can set integer data and we can even retrieve it using the getter and setter methods. For right now, just remember that v int var is used to set the value of radio button or check button. Okay. Now I'll have my radio button. I'll write radio button. And I want my radio button on the window. So I'll write win. And the text that I want is radio button 1. And variable I will give in to be v. And let the active background be pink and active foreground be purple. And the command, I told you I'll be giving in a command, so the command name would be pre. Okay, so I'll define this pre. What pre would do is it would show up another window with the text value accepted. Now how I would do this, I would use canvas and create text function by canvas. So I'll write wind equals tk. Here I have another window for Tkinter. I'll write c equals canvas. Where I want the canvas, I want it on the window, so I'll give in wind. And background color, let it be light green. Then I'll pack this canvas. I'll write c.pack. Then I will create text. I'll write c.create text. Let the coordinates be 100, 10. Let the text be value accepted. I'll fill in with purple. Then the font, let it be 16. Cool. Then I'll run the main loop. I'll write wind.main loop. Okay. Now let's get back to the main code. I've given pre as command. And now I will use grid for this because I want the radio buttons in a specific line or a row. So I'll write dot grid. Row equals 0. Fine. I will have another radio button. So I'll write v2 equals int var radio button when text equals radio button 2 variable let it be v2, active background, let's keep it the same as above, then command free, fine. And for grid, now the row number would be 1 because I want it in the next line, so I'll write dot grid row equals 1. Similarly, you can have the check buttons. They are very similar. It's just the difference of the symbol. So I'll have variable 1 equals int var check button, window where I want it on the window, and text check button 1, variable is var1, and again I'll give in grid. I'll not pack this, I'll use grid, and row, let it be 3. If you're given the same row number, then the things would overlap and you would not be able to see the radio buttons. So given a number greater than 1 or 0, then I'll have another variable var2 int var check button when text equals check button 2, variable var2, and grid row 4. Fine. Then I can run the main loop. I'll write win.main loop. So let's run this and let's see if everything works as we have defined it, if we can call on to 3 as we given the value for radio buttons. So I can see the radio buttons and check buttons on the window, and when I click on the check buttons, they get checked, nothing else happens. But when I click on the radio buttons, I can see another window popping up with value accepted, message, and same as with the other radio button. If I click on it, I can see another window. So we could actually give in the command and execute it properly. So giving in this command also helped you in practicing Canvas once. That's it about radio buttons and check buttons. You can check out once what all arguments we could give to radio buttons or check buttons. Thank you. Hey everyone. So to display text on the Tkinter window, we just have learned about the create text function in Canvas, but we also have label and message to print a message on the screen, to get text on screen. So we haven't discussed that yet. That's what we are going to talk about today. We will learn about the label and message widgets. There is just a little difference between label and message. Let's write some code to check that out. So from Tkinter, import star, and I'll have my window, write win tk brackets. I'll give it a title. I'll write win.title, display text. Let the title be display text. Now I'm gonna add my widget, that is message, and I'll give in a variable. I'll write my message equals message, and where do I want that? I want it on the main screen, so I'll write win, comma, what is the text that we want to display? So the text equals hello everyone, kindly pay attention, we are learning Tkinter. Cool. And then we'll give in a background color. I'll write bg equals pink. Okay, then I'll give in an aspect. So aspect is the ratio. So basically it's aspect ratio. It's the ratio of width and height in percent. The default is 150, which means the width would be 50% greater than the height of the message box. So you can think of on your own what aspect you would give in. I will give in an aspect of 500, and then I will give in border width. It will be 5, BD equals 5. I'll also give in a type of border, relief equals ridge. I'll give in a padding, pad x equals 10, just along the x-axis. Okay, also the foreground, let it be dark blue. Fine. I can also give in a font, let it be ink free, 14, and italic. So that's the way you can give in a font. That's how you describe a font in Tkinter. Then you can just look up what all arguments you can give in for message. So we have already described master. We have not talked about anchor. So anchor is used to decide where the text should be placed in the message widget. It can be north, northeast, the top right corner, east, southeast, south, southwest, or center. The default is center. Do not get confused between justify and anchor. Anchor is for position, whereas justify is like alignment. Okay. Then we have aspect. We just discussed it. We have decided the background and border and font foreground color too. We know about justify. We can give in a padding, pad y and pad x. We know about relief. We know about text. And you can also give in the width, but I have not given it. That's fine. I have already given in the aspect. Then I'll get to the label. I'll write label equals label. So for the master, it would be win again. And then text, let it be label widget does not allow multiple lines. Okay, so this is a fact. Label widget would not let you get a long text in several lines. There is no line wrap-up option, so it'll just cut off the text that does not fit into the specified height and width. So if you have mentioned a smaller size, the text will just disappear and not all the text would appear on the screen. Cool. So this is one difference between message and label widget. There are many, but this is a major one. Then I will give in the border size, let it be 8. Let the background be sky blue. And I'll have a cursor for this. Let the cursor be cross. Foreground, let it be yellow. And I'll also give in a font here. I'll write Georgia 18 italic. Relief raised. Height, let it be 2. And I'll not give in the width. Let the label widget decide it on its own according to the text. Now I'll pack this, but first I'll pack the label, then I'll pack the message. Okay. Now let's see if the packing order affects the order of display, or is it the order of defining the widgets that decide in which order the widgets would be displayed. So I'll write down label.pack. I'll simply use pack and then I'll also pack the message widget dot pack. I will call the main loop win dot main loop. Fine. Let's check out how the label and message widgets work. Hey everyone, today we're going to talk about the menu widget in Tkinter. It is basically to create a menu bar or a list-like menu. There is nothing complex about it, just try to understand how things are working as we write the code. So from Tkinter, import star, and I'll get the window. I'll write win equals tk. I'll also given a title. I'll write win.title. Let the title be menu. Then I'll add the widget. So this widget would be declared with a variable menu, which will be the main menu, and that would contain the submenus to be displayed. So I'll write menu equals menu, and where do I want this menu? On the window, on the master window. So I'll write win. So I'll have this main menu where all the other features or objects will be contained, like this is the main list that will contain elements with sublists. Now I would need to add this to the master window, so I'll write dot config menu equals menu. This config function can be used to overload. If you have an object in Tkinter that is already configured and you want to edit some of those configurations, we use config. Now we'll create the elements of the main list. So I'm gonna create a list with picking tools, the size of the tools, and then its color. So let's do it. So first would be tool equals menu, and within brackets you can see what all configurations you can give in to this menu widget. So for master I'll give menu. I'll give in a background color, let it be gray. Let the foreground be black. I'll also give in active background, let it be sky blue. Okay. Then I need to add this tool object to the main menu list. Okay, so I'll write menu, the variable menu, dot add cascade. That is how you add any object to the main list, main menu, and label equals tool, and menu equals tool. Okay. Now I'll be adding some options to the tool object. So I'll write tool dot add command. You can also add in check buttons and radio buttons, but we'll just stick to command for right now. And label equals pen. Then I'll add some more options. I'll write tool dot add command. Label equals brush. Then tool dot add command, label equals pencil. Then tool dot add command, label equals eraser, and command equals. So I'll give in a command to this. Whenever you click on this option, this given command should take place. So command would be win.quit. Then I'll have another menu object, the size. So I'll write size equals menu, and it's the part of the main menu, so I'll write menu in brackets. Then I'll add this size object to menu, so I'll write menu dot add cascade label equals size, and menu would be size. Okay, I will not decorate this, I'll just keep it to default to check out what the default is. Then I'll add the options to the size object, so I'll write size dot add command and label, let it be 1px, and similarly I'll do for 3, 4 and 6px. So I'll just copy this down. I'll write 3px, 4px and 6px. Cool. I'll have another element for the main menu. I'll write colors equals menu, and I'll give it an active background for this. Let it be light green, and the background, let it be light yellow. Okay. I'll add this colors to main menu. I'll write menu dot add cascade label equals colors, menu equals colors, and I'll add the options to colors. I'll write colors dot add command label equals red, colors dot add command label equals yellow, and colors dot add command label equals blue, and I'll call in the main loop. I'll write win dot main loop. Now you can see that even for these options you can give in configurations. You can have a background color, a foreground color, a different active background, etc. Please check them out too, they'll help you practice. Now let's check out how the menu works, how the menu widget works, how it looks like. So I have my screen and you can see tools, size and colors on the menu bar. They are the part of the main menu, and when I click on each one of them, they display a new menu. Okay, so that's the sublist. So I hope you get an idea of how the menu was organized, and you can even add further lists. So please try doing that too. That would be a practice. And when you are quite comfortable with menu, you might also look up for menu button. Try to pick out the differences and benefits of menu button. What options menu doesn't provide, menu widget doesn't provide, but the menu button does. So that's it about the menu widget. Thank you. Hey everyone, today we're going to talk about message box in Tkinter. So without declaring a new screen, you can have one. But its functionalities are limited. So let's check what I'm actually talking about. Basically, I will declare buttons and the commands would contain functions that call the message boxes. We can have many types of message box. As per our requirement, we can have the show info, show warning, show error, ask question, ask OK cancel, ask yes no, ask retry cancel. These all are functions available in the message box module. Now we'll check them one by one. Let's get started. So I'll write from Tkinter import star, and also from Tkinter import message box. You need to import this message box module separately, and then I'll get the window. I'll write win equals tk brackets, and I'll also give in a title. I'll write win.title. Let the title be message box. And then I'll also specify the size of the screen. So I'll write win.geometry 400 cross 400 in double quotes. So that's how you can specify the size of the screen. This is a new thing. Then we will define the functions one by one. They would be given as command for each button. So first of all, I'll use the show info function. So I'll write def show info brackets, and I'll write message box dot show info. So the first string would be the heading of the message box. So I'll write important, because this is just an information. And for the message, I'll write this might take a minute. Okay. Then similarly, I'll define some more functions. I'll write something for show error. So I'll write def error and message box dot show error. The title would be error, and the message would be the specified path does not exist, because this is an error. You can give in any messages as per requirement. Then I'll have something for ask question. I'll write def q message box dot ask question, and I'll write title age, and the message would be are you 13 years old or above? Question mark. So in ask question function, you'll have two options to select from, yes or no, and accordingly you can select. Then I'll define for ask okay or cancel. I'll write def cancel. You can name the function anything. It's just what function you call. Then I'll write message box dot ask okay cancel, and let the title be delete, and message be are you sure you want to delete? Question mark. Then I'll have the function yes no. So I'll write def yes no brackets, and I'll call the ask yes no function. Write message box dot ask yes no, and let the title be confirmation, and the message be are you sure you want to proceed? So ask yes no also gives you two options to select from, yes and no. So you might think that ask yes no and ask question functions are same, but they're not. The ask question returns yes or no string, but the ask yes no function returns a boolean, true for yes and false for no. Okay, then you also have the ask retry cancel. So I'll define a function for that too. I'll write def retry. Now for this function, you will have two options to select from, retry and cancel. Now if you click on retry, this ask retry cancel function returns true, and if you click on cancel, it returns false. So just to give you an idea of what is happening, I'll declare a variable for this function which will store this boolean. So I'll have r equals message box dot ask retry cancel. Let the title be failure, and the message, let it be, do you want to try again, question mark. And if R is true, if R, then I'll print retry. I'll simply print retry on the console, and else I'll print cancel. Cool. Then I'll move on to the next function. I'll have this show warning function, so I'll write def warn and message box dot show warning. Let the title be warning in caps, and let the message be, this might lead to malfunction of the app. Okay. Now I have all the functions for all the buttons. Now I'll declare the buttons one by one and assign them these functions. We have 7 functions, so we'll have 7 buttons. So let's start. B1 equals button, and where do I want my button? I want it on the window, so I'll write win. Text equals information, because first I'll have the show info command, so command equals show info. Background, let it be sky blue. Foreground, let it be white. Active background, let it be light green. Then I'll place this button. I'll write b1 dot place, and x equals 100, y equals 100. So I'll simply give in a coordinate, and similarly I'll have all my buttons, so I'll just copy this and edit the next ones. So for B2, I want it on the screen, so I'll write win as master. Then text would be error. Command would also be error. And the rest, let it be same. I'll change the coordinates to 100, 200. Right, 200. Okay. Then in B3, I'll have when, text, let it be retry. Command would be retry. I have my retry function. And then let the rest be same, let the decoration be same for the button. And I'll have the coordinates as 100, 300. So y would be 300. Then again I'll have B4. I'll change the text to question. Command will be QUE. And I'll change the coordinates to 200, 100. So x would be 200, y would be 100. Then B5, let it be cancel. Command will be cancel, and the rest would be same. Then the x coordinate, let it be 200, y let it be 200. Okay. Then I'll have B6. Text, let it be yes, no. Yes or no. And command, let it be yes, no. Coordinates will be 200, 300. Okay. Then B7. Let the text be warning. Command will be warn. Coordinates will be 300 and 100. Okay. And I'll call in the main loop. I'll write win dot main loop. I hope there is no confusion. The text for buttons is what would be displayed on the buttons. The command for the buttons are user-defined functions which contain the message box widget functions. Okay, so you should be very clear about all this. Now let's run this and see the buttons and check out the message boxes, how they are popped up on the screen. So I have my screen and I can see the buttons as defined, and I'll click on each one of them. I get a sound too. So this important is the title as defined, and this might take a minute. So this I symbol is there and I have to click on OK because that's the only available option. And I have question and there's a question mark symbol. I have two options. So there are differences in each function. And for warning, I have an exclamation mark symbol. Then for cancel, I have a question mark again, but the options are different. I have OK cancel. Then for retry, there is retry cancel. And when I click on retry, I can see retry printed on the terminal because that's how I defined it. Now that's pretty much it about the message box widget. Thank you. Hey everyone, we have covered almost all the widgets in Tkinter. We are left with a few, so let's just take a look at them. We will discuss the scale, scroll bar, list box and spin box. They are very easy to understand and there is nothing complex about them. So I'll just get all these widgets on the same screen and let's start writing the code. I'll write from Tkinter import star. You don't need to import any separate module for these. Then I'll have my screen, I'll write win equals tk, and then I'll give in a title, I'll write win.title, and let the title be scroll. So I'll add my first widget, I'll give the name scale, have the variable scale, equals scale, that's my widget. So it is like a slider that lets you pick a value and it has two methods, get and set. So let's just give the options for this. Where do I want the scale? I want it on my window. So I'll write win. And you have this from and to specify the range of the slider. So I'll write from equals 0 to 100. Okay. I'll give in a background, I'll give it to be light yellow. Then a foreground, let it be black. You can give an orientation for vertical and horizontal. So I'll give an orient equals horizontal. Then I'll give in a label. So let the label be scale widget. There are many more options like the rough color, the slider relief, the kind of slider you want. You can give it a command, you can have a font description, you can have resolution, you have slider length, you can specify the length of the slider, then you can specify the state of it, you can have the cursor, then the border, etc. So we have given enough options and let's pack this widget. I'll write scale.pack. Cool. Now I'll go to the spin box. I'll write spin box equals spin box, and for the arguments I'll give master equals win. Again we have from and to, so from 0 to 10. You can also give in a negative number for from. You can start from a negative number, you can go to a negative number, but there should be a difference, there should be a positive difference between them. So you can give in accordingly the range, but we'll do it from 0. And then I'll give in a background color, I'll write PG equals light gray. ft equals orange, and let me give in a font. I'll give the font to be Arial 12 italic. It's just a number, you can even not give in the font. For spin box too, we have a lot of options. Some are same as the scale widget, but there are some things that are different. So you have button up relief and button down relief. Then you have this increment parameter, it can be a float. Then you have this X scroll command option. So you can give in a command that you want to take place when you scroll through the values. That is when you increment or decrement the numbers in the spin box. And I'm done with the widget, so I'll pack this. I'll write spinbox.pack. Then I'll go on to the scroll bar. I'll write scroll bar equals scroll bar. So for argument I have win as master. So let's just keep the scroll bar simple. It'll just take up a side, and I'll pack the scroll bar. I'll write scroll bar dot pack side equals right, fill equals y. So I'll pack this at the right side of the screen, and I want to fill the y-axis completely with the scroll bar. Okay. Then I'll get my list. So I'll have this variable list equals list box. This is another widget, and when as master. Now what I want to do is I want to scroll through the list as I move my scroll bar. So I'll write y scroll command equals scroll bar dot set. So I'll set the values according to this y scroll command. Okay. Now I'll also give in a font. I'll give it to be Georgia 20. It's for the list. Okay. And I'll have the background color to be sky blue. Cool. Now there are many methods associated with the list box widget. To insert the values in a list box, we would use the insert method. So what I'll do is I'll write for I in range 51. I'll just make a list with 51 lines, and I'll write list.insert end. So I need to give in the index, and end would represent the point immediately after the last character entered by the user. So end for the index, and for the element I'll write string I plus dot. We are checking the list and scroll bar together. Okay. Now outside the for loop, I'll pack this widget. I'll write list.pack side equals right, fill equals y, expand equals true. Okay, so that'll give me a good format. Now I want to configure the scroll bar again because I want to add the list to it. Okay, so I'll write scrollbar.config. We have already discussed the use of config. Config is basically for overloading. And I'll write in the argument command equals list.yView. Okay. So this tells the scroll bar that whenever the scroll bar is scrolled through, the list should also move along the y view, okay, the y-axis. Now I can call the main loop. I'll write win.main loop, and let's just run this and check out all our widgets if they're working together and working properly as we have arranged them. So I have my scale widget, and you can see how this bar moves and gives us values. Then you have your spin box. You can increase the value first and then decrease it, but the values will only go from 0 to 10. We also have the scroll bar, this thin line along the right of the screen, and as you scroll, as you move the scroll bar, you can see the list moving up and down along this. We have the list elements as we specified them, and that's pretty much it for this video. I hope you understood the widgets. Thank you. Hey everyone, today we're going to talk about the events and event handling in Tkinter. We would focus on the bind function and talk a little elaborately about the main loop. So events handling is an important part of Tkinter module. In this video, we would try to understand the basic things associated with it. And in the next video, we would see a related example. Okay. So we would try to make the program a little interactive by giving user inputs from the keyboard. So that would be very much done by the event handlers. Okay, so let's start writing the code for it. I'll write from Tkinter import star. Then I'll get my window. I'll write win equals tk. Then I'll give in a title. I'll write win.title. Let the title be event handling. Okay, so I told you I'd be telling you a little more about the main loop. So whenever you create a Tkinter application, we have always been calling the main loop, okay, at the end. So why do we call the main loop? What the main loop actually does, it checks whether an event has occurred or not. It checks for an event, occurrence of an event. So if there is some event that has occurred, then the written code, the code that the user has given, would be executed. So as the main loop has checked for an event occurrence, the program written will be executed as a response. Okay, so you need to write the code that will be executed in response to an event. Okay, so you write these functions called event handlers for the events that you use in your application. Okay. Now I would be creating a very similar event handler for every time I press a key on the keyboard. I should get that key printed on the console. Okay, not the Tkinter window, but the console. So what I'd write is, I'll write def. So I'll have a function for that. I'll write def pressed key. And in brackets, I'll write event. I'll give event as an argument. And I'll write print event.char. So that simply completes what I just said. I want to print whatever I clicked. Okay. So now we would move to the bind function. To call an event handler whenever an event occurs on a widget or function or method, we use the bind function. Okay. The event handler is said to be bound to that event because it's called every time the event occurs. Okay. And how do we do that? We'll just write for our window win.bind. Okay. And the first parameter would be the sequence. So it's just a string of the form event name. Okay, I'll just write it down. I'll write here the event name is key. So in double quotes, I'll write key, and I should give this less than and greater than sign rounded. Okay, that's how you write the event name. And this event name can be any of Tkinter's events. So there are many events in Tkinter. We have enter, leave, button 1, button 2, or key. So here it is key. And then we'll have the function name. Okay, you can see for bind, we have to give sequence and then the function. Okay, so the event handler basically. So I have pressed key. I'll write pressed key as the function. Okay, so that completes my bind function, and then I'll run the main loop. I'll write win.main loop. Now whenever the main loop would run, it will check for the event. So I have declared my event here as pressed key function. Okay, I've given it as the argument. And whenever this event will occur, what is my event? The event is the user giving an input from the keyboard while by pressing a key. Okay. So whenever this event occurs, this function would be carried out. Okay. This part of code would be executed as a response to the event occurrence. Okay, so that's what should happen. Now let's check if that really happens. Whenever I click on the key, I should see that key printed on the console. Okay, let's do that. So I have this Tkinter blank screen. Okay, and I'd not do anything with the screen, but I just start typing something, and that should be typed out on the console automatically without me taking the cursor over there. Okay, so let's do that. I'll just press D, and there it is. You can see it on the console, and then you can see T, and then you can see Q, and let me press a numeric. Let it be 1. I'll press shift 1. Okay, and then I can press M. Then I can give in any character. Okay, this was an semicolon and an inverted comma. So that's it about this program. I just wanted to show you how interactive Tkinter can be, and we'll see a related example in the next video. Thank you. Hey everyone, we have already discussed the event handlers, but we are left with the Tkinter events. Let's discuss a few of them in brief. So first up, we have the button event. When a mouse button is pressed with the mouse pointer over the widget, we make use of this event. Then we have 3 parts of mouse: the middle, the right, and left. So accordingly, we have button 1, button 2, and button 3. Okay. Then we have motion. We would be working with this motion event as an example. We would see an example related to this event. So we have B1 motion, B2 motion, and B3 motion for the current position of XY members. And then we can have button release, we can have double button. We also have enter. So enter is for telling that the mouse pointer has entered the widget. We also have leave as a complementary to enter. So this leave event would be used when the mouse pointer leaves the widget. Okay. And then we have focus in and focus out. So focus in is to focus on a widget, and focus out is to move to other widget, move the focus to other widget. Okay. Then we have return, we have key, we have shift up, and we have configure. So these were the Tkinter events. While understanding these event handlers, we used the event key, and this time we would use the motion event. So let's write a program for it. So let me tell you what I'd be doing. So I would write a program for getting the current position of mouse on a widget, only on a widget. Okay, so let's do that. So I'll write from Tkinter import star. Then I'll have my window. I'll write win equals tk. Then I'll give in a title. I'll write win.title brackets, and let the title be event handling. Let the widget be canvas. Okay, so I'll have C equals canvas, and where do I want the canvas? I want it on the window. So I'll write win comma background color equals pink, and width, let it be 500, and height, let it be 400. Okay, and now I'll use the bind function. We discussed the bind function last time. So bind is to call the specified function whenever the specified event takes place. Now I would specify 2 arguments. One would be the event and one would be the function. So I need to make that function too, but before that I'll write c.bind, and now let's define the function. I'll also name the function as motion, so I'll write def motion, and I'll give in the argument event. We did this last time too, because I want to check the event if the event has occurred and the related things to the event. Okay, so I just want to check the current position of the cursor on the widget. So I want to print that. So I'll write print brackets f current position of cursor is in curly braces event dot x comma event dot y, and I'll put this in a bracket. So that would get me the current position of the cursor. And about this f format, this is a very basic way of getting values of variables within a string in Python. So I hope you know about that. And then I'll just simply write return in the function. Okay. So I can get back to the main part and I'll give in the arguments. I'll write within single inverted commas, I'll write motion. And I'll also give in the function to be motion. Okay, that I just defined. Fine. Now I'll pack this. I'll write c.pack and I'll run the main loop. Okay. So let's run this and let's see if we get the mouse coordinates. So I have this pink screen, and whenever I move the cursor over it, I get the positions of the cursor constantly, and whenever it stops, the output has stopped. But if I increase this screen, and you can see that outside this widget there is no such output seen, but on this widget I can get the current position of the cursor. Cool. So that's it about the event handling. So we have covered a lot of Tkinter, and the more you practice, the more you get the concept clear. So in the next video, we would be seeing some application of Tkinter would help you implement all that you have learned. Thank you. Hey everyone, till now we have learned a lot about Tkinter widgets and their functionalities. It's time we put them to use. So today we would make a simple dice on the Tkinter window using the random module and the button widget. It would be a 6-sided dice, so on rolling a 6-sided die, you get a number, and that's what would happen here. We would get a number in between 1 to 6 randomly picked by the random module. So basically, whenever I click on the button, I should see a number randomly displayed on the screen. So let's get started. I'll first import Tkinter, or rather I'll write from Tkinter import star, and I'll write win equals tk, and win.title, let the title be dice, and I'll have the widget, I'll add a widget, so I'll write button equals button. Where do I want the button? I want it on the window, so I'll write win, and I'll give in the width to be 20 and background to be light yellow. Then I can give in the foreground to be blue, and I'll leave the command for right now. I'll just write command equals, and we'll talk about it later, a little later. Then I'll give in a border of 3 and relief, let it be sunken. An active background, let it be white, and the text displayed on the button, let it be roll in caps. Then I'll pack this. I'll write button dot pack. Now I would also need label widget in order to display the chosen number by the random module. So I'll write label equals label. So that's the widget. And width, let it be 20 so that the button and label are in some alignment. And background color, let it be sky blue. Foreground, let it be purple. Okay. Now I will define a function that would assign the value of text parameter of the label widget. So I'll write def pick number. So in this function, a random number would be picked in between 1 to 6, and also that number would be assigned to the text parameter of the label. So that would be displayed on the screen. So how would I do that? It's very simple. So I have def pick num, and I'll write label text. So this is a dictionary label object, and I'll assign the value str string random.randint 1 to 6. Okay, so a 6-sided die has 6 numbers on it, so I have used randint so that I can include both 1 and 6. So this piece of line picks a random number, converts it into a string, then assigns that to the text of label. Now I will have this function as the command for the button widget. So this is a dictionary label object, so I have simply accessed the text parameter of this label widget that I created just now. Okay, and I have assigned it this value, this randomly picked string. Okay, cool. Then I need to pack the label too, so I'll write label.pack. So I left the command of button widget empty. Now I'll just give in the function pick num. Okay, so whenever we click on the button, we are calling the pick num function, and it assigns the label's text a random number in between 1 to 6. Okay, so we're done with what was required, and I can simply run the events loop. I'll write win.main loop, and that's it. So let's run this and let's check if we get randomly picked numbers. So I have my screen, and when I click on roll button, I can see new numbers appearing, random numbers appearing. So that's the use of the random module, and it's working quite fine. So here we combine two widgets together to get an application. You can do the same, and the more you practice, the more you'll get better at it, the more easily you'll be able to handle the widgets in Tkinter. I hope you understood this example. It was simple. Thank you. Hey everyone! Today we would create a simple app that converts a temperature in Fahrenheit to Celsius. If I talk about the main things required, we would need the function that simply converts Fahrenheit to Celsius, that formula. Then we would need the user to input the temperature. For that, we would use the entry widget. We haven't talked about it yet, but it's very simple to use. And we would also have a button widget which gives the output on being clicked. Okay. So it is a very simple app. Let's get to the code right away. I'll import Tkinter. So I'll write from Tkinter import star. Then I'll get my window. I'll write win equals tk. I'll have a title. I'll write win.title. Let the title be temperature converter. Okay, then I'll start adding the widgets. First, I'll add the frame on which I want that text box. So I'm declaring a frame for it because I also need to put in the label widget. I would need the symbol of degree Fahrenheit. So I would add that label to the same frame. Okay. So I'll write frame equals frame, And where do I want it? I want it on the window, so when as master. And I'll pack this. I'll write frame dot grid and row equals 0 and column equals 0, and I'll given a padding, I'll write pad x equals 10. So there is no overlap on the screen boundaries. Okay, cool. Then I'll get that entry widget, that text box. How do I do that? I'll write temp1 equals entry. So that would allow the user to enter any text into that text box. Okay, and for the arguments, where do I want it? I want this entry widget on the frame, so I'll write frame, and width, let it be 10. Cool. Then I'll use grid. I'll write temp1 dot grid, row equals 0 and column equals 0, same as the frame. Okay, and I'll have an f variable for that label, for that symbol of degree Fahrenheit, because I need to tell that this entered number is in Fahrenheit and that number would be converted into degrees Celsius. So I need to give in the units. So I'll write f equals label, and I want it on the frame, so I'll write frame, comma text, and this is something different. You might know it, you might not know it, but I can easily get degree Fahrenheit symbol by this. So I'll write in capitals degree Fahrenheit, and there is a /n before this, and it's in inverted commas. Cool. Now I'll pack this too, or should I say use grid. So I'll write f dot grid, and row would be 0 and column would be 1. Okay, simple. Now we are done with the frame. Now I would need the button that would convert, or that would call on to the function of conversion. Okay, so first let me get the button. I'll write button equals button and window. I'll not get this on the frame, I'll just get it on the window. Okay, and text equals a right black arrow. So how can I do that? The similar way I got that degree Fahrenheit symbol, you can get numerous symbols like this. So here on the button, I'll get a rightwards black arrow. So I'll write in inverted comma /n and a rightwards black arrow. Fine. For the command, I'll define the command in some time. First, let me make the function, and I'll give in a background color, let it be sky blue. Okay, that's it. So let me define this function, Fahrenheit to Celsius, that would be my function. So I'll write def Fahrenheit to Celsius and brackets. So I'll write f equals temp1 dot get. So whatever you entered here in the entry widget, you'll get it over here. Okay, that would be the value of this f variable. Okay, so then I'll get the C, that stands for Celsius right now. I'll write 5 by 9. So this is the simple formula for conversion of Fahrenheit to Celsius. So I'll write f and minus 32. Okay, I'll also convert this to float because there is a 5 by 9 clause. So I'll write float. Cool. And now I will display the C variable as the text of another label widget. So let's do that. I will have temp2, which would be the converted temperature, the temperature entered in degrees Celsius. Okay, so I'll write temp2. This variable is not still declared in the main function. We will do that in some time. So temp2 in brackets text equals f in inverted commas round c comma 2 to two places and curly braces closed. I'll also need the symbol of degree Celsius here, just like we got that degree Fahrenheit symbol there. I would use that here too. So I'll write /n and degree Celsius in capital. So now I'll get to the main function again. I'll write up this command. I'll write Fahrenheit to Celsius and I'll use grid. For this button, I'll write convert button dot grid row equals 0, column equals 1 and pad y equals 10. Fine. And I need to define this temp2 also. Okay, so I'll write temp2, it's the label. Initially, let us keep it as degree Celsius symbol, and then it would be reassigned every time we click on that button after we enter a value. Okay, so we have temp2 equals label again, and win and text, let it be /n degree Celsius. Fine, and then I'll use grid to place it. Write temp2 dot grid row equals 0, column equals 2 and pad x equals 10. Fine. So I'm done with the app. I'll call in the main loop. I'll write win dot main loop and run this. So I have my screen again, this temperature converter, and let's try for 100 degrees Fahrenheit because we know it's 37.78 degrees Celsius. So I'll just write 100 and nothing else, and I'll simply click on this button. So I have 37.78 degrees Celsius, so this temperature converter is working fine. Let's enter some other value. Let's enter 0. 0 degree Fahrenheit is minus 17.78 degrees Celsius. And this would even work for negative values of Fahrenheit. So I'll write minus 11 degree Fahrenheit. So it would be minus 23.89 degrees Celsius. Cool. So that's it about this app. Hope you understood everything. Thank you. Hey everyone, another application made using Tkinter can be a text editor. We haven't yet explored the file dialog module by Tkinter. It needs to be imported separately. The module provides classes and factory functions for creating file or directory selection windows. We have native loads, static factory functions, convenience classes. Convenience classes help in creating files or directories from scratch, while static factory functions are user responsive. So the text editor that we would make would have two static factory functions, open and save. So let's start making the application right away. I'll import Tkinter. I'll write from Tkinter import star, and from Tkinter dot file dialog import ask open file name, ask save as file name. We would use the ask open file name for opening a file for editing, and the ask save as file name for saving the current file as a new file. Now I'll get my window. I'll write window equals tk and window.title. So the title can be text editor. Fine. Now I'll get a text widget to insert multiple lines so that I can write on it. A text editor needs inputs, so this is how I'll give them the inputs. And even for displaying some text, I need a field, so I'll use the text widget. So I'll have this variable text equals text. Where do I want it? I want it on my window, so I'll write window. Foreground, I'll set some foreground. I'll give it purple, the foreground, and background equals light yellow. That would be a nice combination. And font, let it be Calibri 14. Fine. Then I'll pack this. I'll write txt text dot pack. I will get a menu now to have the open and save as options, just like in a text editor. So I will name the menu file. For that I should write menu equals menu, and on the window, so window. Now I'll configure it. I'll write window.config menu equals menu, and now file menu equals menu, and in brackets again menu. Now I'll add the options. First, to the main menu, I'll write menu dot add cascade, label equals file, and menu equals file menu. Then to the file menu, I'll add open and save as. So I'll write file menu dot add command, label equals open, comma command. For now I'll leave it blank, and file menu dot add command, label equals save as, and command. Again, let's leave it blank for right now, and I'll call window dot main loop. Fine. Now I need these two functions, open a file and save a new file. So the first function, to open a file, let's define it. I'll write def open file brackets, and I'll write file path equals ask open file name, file types equals in a list, in a tuple, text files, comma, the extension for them, star.txt, and again comma and a tuple, all files, comma, the extensions. This statement will open a dialog box so that the user can select the file to be opened. Since we are working with only text files, I could have only given the tuple text files, but what we have written now lets you access all the kinds of files that can be presented or read by the text editor. Now, after the dialog box is opened, it might happen that the user clicks on the cancel or closes the window. So for that case, I'll write if not file path. If no file path is selected, you return no further code is executed. Otherwise, I'll delete whatever is there currently on the text editor. I'll write txt.delete. I hope you remember txt was our text widget, and I'll delete whatever is there on the text editor currently. From index 1, so 1.0, till the end, end. Fine. Now I need my text file to be read, the selected file to be read. So for that I'll write with open file path as an argument. Mode should be only read, so R, and you can pass an encoding UTF-8 as input file. Text is equals to input file dot read. Now this string as read is inserted in the text editor. So I'll use the insert function of the text widget. So I'll write txt.insert and text. Fine. And finally, I should change the title of the window to the file path. Okay, so I'll write window.title f simple text editor and file path. So this is a Python format for getting the values. I hope you know this. And okay. Now very similarly, I should define the save file function too. So I'll write def save underscore file and brackets. Okay, so this would be for saving the current file as a new file. Firstly, I need to create the file path to get the location of the file to be saved. So I'll write file path equals ask save as file name, default extension .txt. So how the file should be saved with the extension .txt unless specified, and file types again similarly in a list, then in a tuple, text files and the extension star.txt. Again, you can give in the all files or not, it's your wish. Then all files and star.star. Fine. Now again, if the screen is cancelled, you do not need to run any further code. For that, I'll write if not file path return. Otherwise, a new file is created. The text on the text editor is extracted for the same. So how would I do it? I'll write with open. I'll give in the file path. I already have it. Mode now would be W so that it is writable. Encoding equals UTF-8 as output file. Okay. Now text equals txt.get from 1.0 till index end. Okay, the output file gets the text. So I'll write output underscore file dot write text. And again, the title needs to be changed to file path. So I'll write window.title f simple text editor and file path in curly braces. And that's pretty much it for the two functions. Now I need to pass these two functions as the commands for the two menu options. So I'll write for file menu 1 command equals open file where the label was open, and for save as I'll write the command save underscore file. We are good to go. Let's run this and see if the text editor works properly. So I have the window, and please note that the title is text editor. It would change later. I have a light yellow background. I have this file menu, and I can have open and save as options. So I'll just type in something. I'll write this is a Tkinter application, a simple text editor. And I'll save it now. I'll click on file, I'll click on save as, and I have this pop-up window and it is asking me the file name, so I'll name it as Tkinter and I'll click on save. Now I'll again go to file and click on open. I will click on Tkinter and I'll click on open. So here I have my text that I just saved. The title has also changed to file path. So this was a simple text editor. Thank you. Hey everyone, in this video we would make a simple paint application using Tkinter. We would use many new methods and a lot would be from the canvas class, obviously as we are working with paint. Don't worry, it would be very easy. So to make this application we would use the color chooser module, and just to make things more organized I would make main class that would be later called onto the screen. Let's get started. So from Tkinter, import star, and separately from Tkinter import color chooser and TTK. TTK, you'll get the use of it later. Now the window declare plus its title, so we have win equals tk, and for the title I'll write win.title paint app. Then I'll call on to the main loop, so win.main loop. So I have the basic structure. Now the class main, where I would be defining the functionalities of the paint app. So let's get started. I'll get the class. I'll write class main and first the init function def init, for argument self and master. So this master is the window that would be passed on later to the main class. And then I'll write self.master equals master for initializing the window. Now I need to initialize a lot of variables to start doodling on screen, like the color of my pen, its width, maybe the screen background, the starting position of the pen, etc. So let's initialize the variables one by one. So first is self.color underscore foreground equals black. So the pen color becomes black. Initially, you can change it later. And then self dot color underscore background equals white. Cool. Then also the initial positions. So I'll have self dot old underscore x equals none, and similarly self dot old underscore y equals none. Also the pen width, self dot pen width equals 5. I will call this draw widgets function that is yet to be defined, which would describe the layout and main functioning of my paint app. So I'll just write self dot draw widget and brackets. You'll just understand why I called this here later on when I define the draw widgets function. Now I'll write self.c.bind. Now here I have started using event handlers. The bind function called for the canvas C. C would be declared in the draw widgets function. Now the argument for this event handler bind would be b1 motion, which is the mouse being moved while the left mouse button is held down. And the function called the other argument of the bind function would be self.paint. This would be another function in the main class, and it would be used to draw the lines on the canvas. So I'll write self.c.bind b1 motion self.paint. Okay. Now similarly, I'll have another event for the button release. To specify the button release of left mouse button, I'll use button release 1 event, and for the function of this event, I will call the self reset. It is another function in the main class. I have to declare it. It will indicate the end of one curve drawn. Okay, so I'll write down self dot c dot bind and button release 1 self dot reset. Cool. Now I'll define the paint function. So I'll write def paint self comma e. So e would be the coordinates of the current mouse position. I would fetch that repeatedly in order to draw a curve, and if self dot old underscore x and self dot old underscore y is true, if it's available, then I'll create line. I'll use the canvas function create line, and I'll write self dot c dot create line, and as argument I'll give in the 4 points, the 4 coordinates. So self dot old x and self dot old y, and e dot x and e dot y, the current events, the current mouse positions, x and y coordinates. The width of my curve would be given by self.pen width, as I have defined it in the initial function, and fill equals self.color foreground, and cap style would be round. It's just the style of the curve, the line, and I can do smooth equals true. So we have already used create line in the previous videos, and so I hope you don't need any explanation for the arguments given. And I'll replace the value of old x with e dot x and self dot old underscore y equals e dot y. This would let me draw a continuous line, and then I'll have the reset function. Again, it's self and e, the current position of the cursor, and I'll have self dot old underscore x equals none, and self dot old underscore y equals none, because basically I have ended one curve, so that's what reset means. Now I'll start defining some options available, some functionalities available with the Paint app. Now the first one in the functions would be def changed width, and I'll give self comma width. So this would be used to change the width of the pen, width of the line, and I'll have self dot pen width equals width. Okay, and I have clear canvas, so I'll write def clear canvas self, and I'll use the delete function from canvas, self.c.delete, and argument would be all. That would just actually clear the canvas completely. I'll also have the functionalities of changing the foreground and the background of the screen. So first, for the foreground changing, I'll write def change underscore fg and self. So self dot color underscore fg equals color chooser dot ask color, color equals self dot color underscore fg and 1. So color chooser dot ask color returns a tuple that contains 2 values that represents the selected color. The one at the 0th index is the RGB value, and the second element of this tuple is the hexadecimal color value. And since askColor uses hexadecimal values, I have given the first element of this tuple as the argument. Okay, and similarly I can define for background color. I'll write def change underscore bg and self dot color underscore bg equals color chooser dot askColor and color equals self color underscore bg and in square brackets 1. Fine. Also I need to write self dot c bg in inverted commas equals self dot color underscore bg. Cool. Now it's the turn of draw widgets function. So this would be like the real layout of the frame of the entire canvas of the entire screen. So I'll write def draw widgets self, and now the screen should have the controls in one part and the canvas on the other. So we need to divide the space available. For that we use frames. So I'll write self dot controls equals frame self dot master. I hope you remember the master variable. It was the screen itself, the window, and I'll give some padding. I'll write pad x equals 5, pad y equals 5. Now on the left side, I would need the controls like the pen color, the background color. Let me put these in a menu. Also the clear canvas and exit option should be available there. Then to adjust the size of the pen, that is the width, I would use a slider. Let's get all this on the screen first. So starting with the label of the pen width controller, I'll write text pw equals label self.controls text equals pen width font equals Georgia 16. Now I got this on the frame and not the window itself, please note that, and I'll put it in a grid. I'll write text pw.grid, row equals 0, column equals 0. Then I'll have the slider. I'll write self.slider equals ttk.scale. This is where ttk is used. I'll have a different kind of slider. It would not show me the numbers on the scale, and so for the argument I'll write self.controls comma from equals 5 to 100 to equals 100. Command is self.change w. So just to recall what change w did, it changed the width of the pen. It assigned a new value to the pen width, and the orientation of the scale of the slider would be vertical. Fine. Now I'll set the pen value, pen width. So I'll write self.slider.set in brackets self.pen width. Okay. Now self.slider.grid, row equals 0, column equals 1. Now I'll pack my frame. I'll write self.controls.pack and side equals left. Fine. Now here I'll declare my canvas. So self.c equals canvas, self.master. Where do I want my canvas? On the screen, on master. So self.master width equals 500 and height equals 400. Background color equals self.color underscore bg. It was there in the init function, so that is where from we pick the background color. Then I'll pack this canvas. I'll write self.c dot pack fill equals both, expand equals true. We've already worked with canvas and frames and labels a lot of times, so I hope you're getting what is going on. It's just the assembling of all that we have learned. It's nothing difficult. And now I need to get the menu. So I'll simply have this menu variable equals menu self.master and self.master.config menu equals menu, and I'll have my option menu to which I'll be adding all the options available. So option menu equals menu in brackets menu. It's in the menu of the main menu. Okay, I hope it is not confusing. Now to menu, I'll be adding the option menu variable. So how would I do that? I'll write menu.addCascade label equals menu, menu equals option menu. Now let's add the options to the option menu. So I'll write option menu dot add underscore command, label equals brush color, command equals self dot change underscore foreground. Similarly, for the other functions, I'll write option menu dot add command, label equals background color, command equals self dot change background. Then option menu dot add command, label equals clear canvas, command equals self dot clear, again option menu dot add command, label equals exit, command equals self dot master dot destroy. So we have 4 options: one for changing the pen color, the foreground one for the background changing color, one for clearing the canvas, and one for exiting the canvas. Okay, so we're good to go. Okay, but we need to call in this main class. So I'll write main and in brackets win. Fine. Now we're good to go, and let's run this. So I have my window and I can see this menu and pen width. So I'll start right away doodling on the screen, and I can see the line I've drawn, and I can change the brush color. I can pick any color. Let me pick this, and I have a different color pen now. Let me change the width once, so it has a better width now. The brush is thicker, and I can change the background color too. So here it is, the background color is different. Again, I can clear the canvas, everything is gone, and if I click on the exit option, the screen goes away. So the paint application is working pretty much fine. This was it for the program. Thank you. Hey everyone, in some of the last videos, we have learned the basics of Tkinter, all that we need to make an application with Tkinter. So another application that we can make using the Tkinter module is the ciphertext application. So to actually encrypt and decrypt the message, we would use the one-time pad module, but to give it a GUI interface, we will use the Tkinter module. If you are not familiar with cryptography and cipher, you can read about it in the description. So as I told you, we would be using one-time pad for encryption and decryption purposes. Let's import the module. Also, this might not be pre-installed, so you can just run the command pip install one-time pad. So you can write that in your terminal and you are good to go. So now we would import that module. I'll write import one-time pad. Cool. Also, let's import the Tkinter. I don't want to write Tkinter dot over and over, so I will just import everything from Tkinter, and this is how we have always done it. From Tkinter import star, and then you get the window. That is your GUI interface. You will write win equals tk, and also we can give it a title. Write win.title encryption. Cool. So what I'd be doing is I would create a function for encryption. Decryption is similar, I would discuss it, but to execute it is your task. So coming back to the encryption part, I should have an entry box for entering my message that I want to encrypt or encode, and another display box for the encrypted value to be displayed. Also, I would need encryption button as the function should only be called after entering a value. So let's first create the entry fields and their labels. We will have two labels, one for entering the original message and one for the encrypted message. So if you couldn't follow what I said, you will just understand as I write it. So I'll first have my variable for the first label for entering the message, which is OGMSG. So it's just a short for original message, and I'll write label. Where do I want this label? I want it on my window, so I'll write win. And what is the text that should be displayed in this label? It is enter message. Cool. Then I'll put it in a grid. I'll write OGMSG dot grid in order to display it. Where do I want this message or label to be displayed or to be placed? That is on row 10th and column 1. Working with row and column is more easy to visualize, so that's why I've used row and column. And I'll get another label that is for getting the encrypted message, so I'll write EMSG equals label win dot text equals encrypted message. And then I'll put it in a grid again, EMSG dot grid, and relative to the position of the other label, I'll put the row equal to 11 and column equal to 1. Okay, so there goes my label, and the label would be the text that is already displayed on the screen. So now we will create the text box using entry widget of Tkinter. You might note that we haven't used the one-time pad yet. We will use it only in the encryption function. So I want two entries, one for entering and another for displaying the result. So I'll have E1 equals entry, and where do I want it? I want it on the window. Let's keep everything simple and try to understand what's happening. Then I'll put it in a grid again. I'll place it. I'll write E1.grid and row equals 10. Now since you have placed one object somewhere on the screen, relative to that you can arrange the other objects also. Okay, so I'll write row equals 10 and column equals 2. Okay, and similarly I'll have the another entry e2 equals entry and win and e2.grid row 11 column 2. Okay, now finally I'd be creating the encryption button. So let me write it down. I'll write encryption button equals button and it is win. I want it on the window, so I'll write win, and text should be let it be encryption because that's the function that would be carried out. Background color, let it be gray. It's a normal button. And foreground, let it be black. And now for the command, I'll just leave it blank because I have not defined the function yet. And I'll pack this encryption button. I'll write encryption button dot grid row equals 13 column equals 2. Fine. Now I'll write win dot main loop. Now let's just define this encrypt message function. So I'll just go above a little, scroll up a little, and I'll write def encrypt message. And I'll have this variable message, which will be the original message that would be encrypted, that you want to encrypt. And where will I get it from? I'll get it from my E1, the first entry that I'd be making. And how do you get that in Tkinter? You can write message equals E1 dot get and brackets. And then to encrypt this message, I'll have another variable that will hold this value. I'll have ciphertext equals one time pad dot encrypt. This is an inbuilt function. It will automatically encrypt the message that has been given as an argument. I'll write message because that's the original message that I want to encrypt, and I'll write random. This random gives you what kind of a key you want, so I just can have any random kind of key. I hope you know what key is for a ciphertext. If you don't, please read the description. Now I'll insert this value in the second entry that I created, E2. So how will I do that? I'll write E2 dot insert and 0, ciphertext. The 0 in the argument is for the starting position of this ciphertext from where you want this ciphertext to be displayed. So the command for the encryption button would be encrypt message. I'll just type that down. And now we are good to go. Let's check this once and encrypt the messages. So I have the window now. Let me enlarge it a little. And I will just enter some random text or message. Let me write hello, and I should get something encrypted, some kind of code for this hello. Okay, so I'll write hello and I'll click on the button encryption. So here I go. I have some code, some encrypted message, some cipher for hello. So that's pretty much it about this program. For decryption, you can use the decrypt function in one-time pad module, and you can carry out pretty much the same what we did in this application. Thank you. Hey everyone, in this video we will try to make a registration form using Tkinter. There is nothing to be explained about it as done in some of the last Tkinter applications. It is just assembling all that we have learned in Tkinter. This is more like a practice session. So let's get started with the code right away. From Tkinter import star, and also import Tkinter dot message box. Now I'll add my window root equals tk. Also I'll set a specific size of the window. Let it be 500 into 500. I will put that in inverted commas. The form looks cleaner this way. Moreover, it's been long we have used place to position objects. Mentioning the window size lets me manage coordinates easily. Then I'll also give in a title. I'll write root dot title registration form. Since we are making a registration form, it would be registration form. Cool. Also, let me give my form a little background. So I'll write root.config background equals hash ff_e6f0. Now this should be in inverted commas. Also, this is a light shade of pink. You can also pick any random colors from color picker. Now I will make a very simple registration form. It will have 5 entry fields, 2 for the complete name, first and last name, then a date of birth field, a country field from which country the user belongs, which will be a drop list, a language selection checkbox, and a radio button for gender selection. Okay. So I'll just quickly declare all my 5 variables as string variables, and if you cannot recall what string variables were, they were usually used with the widget's entry and label. Since there are going to be many entries, I would make use of string var to manage them effectively. I will not give in any arguments as they are directly contained in the master window. So first name fn equals string var brackets. Last name ln equals string var again. DOP, the date of birth, equals string var. Variable equals string var, var. Var C1 equals Java. This would be our checkbox 1 for the language selection. Var 2 equals Python. Var C3 equals C++. And then a radio variable, again a string var. This var variable would be used for country, and okay. I would also like this information to be displayed later on the console after I've submitted the registration form. So I'll have a function for that. I'll write def print entry brackets and colon first equals fn dot get. So first would be my first name variable. You can take any variables, that's not a problem. And then for the last name, I'll write second equals ln dot get. dob1 equals dob dot get. Variable 1 equals variable dot get. Var 3 equals var c1. Var 3 equals var c2. Var 3 equals var c3. Now these 3 were repeated because you would be selecting something from the checkbox, only one option, and accordingly the option would be fed in later on. Okay, now I'll have my variable 4 equals radio underscore var dot get. Cool. Now I'll just print it. So how I'll print it, just follow along, you know this already. I'll write print f, the full name is first in curly braces and second in curly braces with a space in between. Then print f your age is DOB1 in curly braces again, and print f your country is in curly braces variable 1. Then again print f your selected programming language is variable 3 in curly braces again, and print f your gender is in curly braces variable 4. Now I'd be calling this function when I'd be done with my form filling. So I'll also have this tkinter.messagebox.showInfo just to give the user a pop-up that your form has been filled. So as the message, I'll write congratulations. This would be the heading of the pop-up box, the message box. And the message displayed in the box would be user has successfully signed up. Now I'll start with the labels, the text things, and the entry fields. So let's start with the heading. I'll have a heading registration form. So I'll have a variable heading equals label. Where do I want it? I want it on root, the window I have, and text would be registration form. Let me decorate it a little, so I'll write relief equals solid, width equals 20, font Arial 19, and bold. Foreground is hash B30047, and background is hash FFE6F0. Now I'll place the heading dot place, x equals 90, y equals 10. Fine. Then for the first name, I'll have a variable f name equals label. It's just the text, not the entry field right now. So label and root. Text equals first name and colon. Width equals 20. Font equals bold 10. Background equals FFE6F0. Fine. Now I'll place it. fname.place, x equals 80, y equals 70. Fine. Then for the entry field of the first name, I'll write efname equals entry root text var equals fn. Okay. Now fn was the string variable that we declared above. I hope you remember. This is how we have used it. And I'll place it. I need to place the entry field also. So it should be on the same y-axis. And so I'll write efname.place, x equals 240, y equals 70. Now very similarly for the last name, lname equals label, root, text equals last name colon, width equals 20, font equals bold 10, background equals again hash FFE6F0. So I'll place it. lname.place, x equals 80, y equals 120. Now the entry field for the last name, I'll just copy it from above and change the text bar equals ln. Then I'll pack it. Again, I'll just copy it. The last entry field, x-axis would be same, y coordinate would be 120 now. Fine. Then moving on to the date of birth label and entry, I'll have date equals label, root comma text equals dob, width equals 20, font equals bold and 10. Background again would be FFE6F0. And I'll place this. I'll write date.place, x equals 80, y equals 170. Fine, then the entry field, edob equals entry, root, and text bar equals dob. Now I'll place it, edob.place, x equals 240, y equals 170. Fine. Now I'll have the country, and that would be your drop down list. So first the label, country equals label. Where do I want this? I want it on the window, so I'll write root. So the text would be country, of course. Text equals country. Width equals 20, font equals bold 10, foreground equals FFE6F0. You can just copy it from above and change the text part, and country.place, x equals 75, y equals 220. Now I'll give in a list for the drop down box, and let's have it. Let's have the list now. List equals, let me give in some names of country: Nepal, India, America, China, Canada, Japan, South Africa, and you can give in names of any countries and a lot more countries. And I'll just make it a drop down list. Now how do we do it? So drop list equals option menu. It's again a Tkinter function, and root and variable. Variable would save the value of the list, whatever was selected, and where the values would be selected from the list. So star list. Fine. Now to set the value, I'll write var.set select country. Okay. Now drop list.config. Since the drop list values, that is var, can change, so I need to configure the drop list. And I'll just give in the width equals 15. So I'll just place it, drop list.place, x equals 238, y equals 220. Now again I'll have a label for the language. Language equals label, root, text equals programming language, width equals 20, font bold and 10, background same as above, FFE6F0. And I'll place this variable language, language.place, x equals 95 and y equals 270. Fine. Now I'll have the check buttons. C1 equals check button, root, text equals Java, variable equals var C1 dot place. Now here I'd be placing this all together without taking it separately. And x equals 235, y equals 270. Just copy this entire statement twice because we have two more check buttons. Text would be Python for the second one, C2, and where variable would be var C2, and I'll place it somewhere else, that is x equals 290 and y equals 270. Similarly for C++, var C3, and I'll change the x coordinates also. Fine. Now for the gender, I'll have the label. I'll just copy it from above because everything is same. Just need to change the text, that is gender. Otherwise width, font and background color, they all are same. And I'll place it somewhere else. I'll write gender dot place x equals 73, y equals 320. Fine. Now for gender, I'll have radio buttons. I can have male and female. So R1 equals radio button, root, text equals male, variable equals radio underscore var, value equals male, dot place, x equals 230, comma, y equals 320. Copy the same R1, make it R2, and text would be female. Also, the value would change to female and x coordinate would change to 290. Fine. So I had all my 5 entries and I'll have 2 buttons now, one to quit and another for submitting the form. So I'll have submit equals button, root, text equals submit, width equals 12, background equals FF 4D94, foreground let it be white, command equals print entry, and I'll place it x equals 130, y equals 400. I'll have the quit button, so quit equals button, root, comma, text equals quit, width equals 12, background and foreground same as above, and command would be exit, and I'll place it x equals 280, comma, y equals 400, and I'll call in the main loop to root dot main loop. It's good to go now. We should not have any problem in the code. Let's run this and check it. So I have the window, the registration form. I'll just quickly fill in some details. You can see the labels and the entry fields. For the first name, I can fill in person 1. For last name, I can fill in last name. Date of birth can be 12/04/2001. I can select some country. See, there's a drop list. And let me select Canada. Programming language, let it be Python. Gender, I'll click on male and I'll submit. So I have this pop-up box, the message box, Congratulations, user has successfully signed up. When I click on submit, I have this printed on the console. So this was it about the program. Thank you. Hey everyone, in the last video we made a registration form that was very basic, and the information attained from it was just printed on the console. Now in this video we will get that entered data in a table, in a database. We will save the information in a table. So for that we have the SQLite model to carry out data related function. Now the entire program would be same except the print entry function. Let me copy the program. I'll go to registrationform.py, Control A, Control C, and I'll just paste it over here. Control V. Fine. Now I'll import SQLite 3, and if you don't have the module, you can always download it using the command pip install SQLite 3. So I'll write import SQLite 3. Fine. And I'll just delete this function def print entry, and in place I'll write def database. I'll get the variables, so I'll write first, just like print entry. I'll write first equals fn.get, second equals ln.get, last name, the first name is done, then dob1 equals dob, the date of birth, dot get, then variable 1 var1 equals var dot get. This was for the country. Then variable 3 var3 equals var underscore c1, var3 equals var underscore c2, var3 equals var underscore c3. Fine. Then the radio button, var4 for the gender equals radio underscore var dot get. Now till here the program was same as the print entry function. It changes when I start connecting this data with the table or the database. Now how do we do that? I'll have a variable conn, that is for connection, equals SQLite3 dot connect, and in brackets I'll give in the name of the database. Okay, so I'll write form.db. This is to establish a connection to SQLite. You need to pass the database name you want to connect. Okay, that was form.db. If the specified database is not present on the disk, then a new one would be created by SQLite. Otherwise, it will connect to the one that is already present. Now, if there is a connection established that was done by .connect, I'll write with conn cursor equals conn.cursor. Now, this is another function by SQLite to create a cursor object to execute SQLite commands queries from Python. Okay. Now to create a database to add values to it, SQL commands need to be executed, and since we are doing that in a Python file, I need the cursor object. Okay. Now I'll write cursor.execute, and in inverted commas I'll give in the SQL command. Okay. So execute is used to run the SQL query and return the results. Okay. So create table if not exists student, which is the name of the database or the table. SQL commands are not case sensitive, but they are preferred to be written in uppercase. Then brackets, I'll give in the field names, f name, and what type of entry would be made. It would be text, and then name and also text. DOB, it is a date, so I'll write date, and country, text again. Programming language, I'll write prog language, it is also text, and gender, which is also text. And close the brackets and the inverted commas. Again, I'll have another statement, SQL statement. I'll write cursor.execute in inverted commas, insert into student f name, l name, dob country, prog language, gender, and what values would be inserted? Values, brackets, I'll give in 6 question marks for 6 fields, inverted commas close, and comma, the value of these question marks can be first these variables where we get the value of the string vars, first, second, dob1, var1, var3, and var4. Fine. These were just the 2 SQL statements that I needed, and then I'll commit. I'll write conn dot commit and brackets to make changes to the table to confirm the changes committed. Okay. And also I need a pop-up box after I've submitted the form. So I'll write Tkinter dot message box dot show info. We can print in the same message, congratulations. And for the information, the user has successfully signed up. Brackets close, inverted commas closed. And the rest would be pretty similar. We have all the entries, we have the labels, we have the entries, we have the drop list for the country, then we have the check buttons, the radio buttons. But here for the command of the submit button, I'll change this to database instead of print entry, and the rest can remain the same. Now let's run this, let's fill in the form, and then we'll check the database. So I have my form now. I'll fill in this registration form twice just to have some data when I'm checking the database, the table. So for first name, I can write ABC, and for last name, I can write XYZ. Then for the date of birth, 12/03/2003, I'll select some country, India. Programming language, let it be Python, and gender male, and I'll submit. I have the pop-up box and I'll click on OK and I'll quit. Again, I'll run this. We can give in the first name MNOP, last name QRST, DOB can be 10/10/1980, and I'll select a country, Canada again maybe, and programming language can be Java, female, and I'll submit. I have the pop-up box and I'll quit. Now it's time to check the database. For that you need to download something, and that's database for SQLite. You can just search this same statement, database for SQLite, and you'll find this first link, and when you click on it you'll see downloads, and you can download the required version. So I installed the standard installer for 64-bit Windows. Now once you've installed it, installing this is very easy. You can go with the default settings and you just need to check the Tkinter folder in which you are saving all the programs, and there you'll find this form.tb and you can open it with database for SQL and you can actually see the table. You will find this interface. So you can see we have our table student. It has the specified field names. When I click on browse data, you can actually see the table that we have filled in. So this was all about the program. We learned how to use SQLite 3 along with Tkinter and SQL in Python. I hope you understood what we did. Thank you.